Is this thing on?
Thank you, Howard. As he said, let's get on with the demo.
1996. NASA launches the Mars Global Surveyor, the United Nations bans nuclear testing, and
It's me, Mario!
the Nintendo 64 officially hits global markets, with Super Mario 64 and Pilot Wing 64 as its launch titles. On May 15th, 1996, in downtown LA, an innovation is presented. The crowd watches on as a 3D representation of Mario is seen on screen. What we normally take for granted, including 360 movement and various movement options, appears to blow the audience's mind.
In a linear A to Z type of game where you can play level, beat a boss, play level, beat a boss.
As they are introduced to an entirely alien concept. Super Mario 64 would go on to be considered one of the best, most impactful, and heavily covered games in history. Levels with great atmosphere, life, and exploration had never been done like this, and people were loving it. Years later, it still retains a strong following. What's the reason for this following? Nostalgia, a rise in people enjoying video games, and of course, the mysteries. In this video, I will be covering 5 different cases, some of them old and some of them quite new. Now, let's get into the first case, which everyone knows about. Oh is real. Super Mario 64 is a game known for rewarding exploration, the secret star hidden within a specific wall, and the stars which only appear after getting 100 coins are both popular secrets that come to mind. Given these secrets, however, it's only natural that many players wondered whether there was anything else hidden in the game's code, waiting to be discovered. In the hub area of the game, we can enter this hallway located on the first floor, where we find a Boo, who upon seeing us will immediately retreat. Following behind, we're then taken into the courtyard of the castle, where we find a few more Boos roaming around. The lack of music may either be calming or creepy, depending on how you look at it. Viewing the center, we find a statue with a power star atop, along with a plaque containing very blurry lines indicating text. Players started speculating. Children in playgrounds who own copies of the game would often have their own ideas as to what the curious plaque was. Some players could swear that the plaque read Eternal Star. Eventually, it evolved to most players agreeing that the plaque read L is Real 2401. Now, it has been suspected that Luigi was supposed to be in Super Mario 64, but didn't end up making it, which was actually confirmed in an interview by Miyamoto himself, who stated Luigi wasn't added due to both memory issues and the fact that most players would probably only have one controller. This popular phrase, however, implied that he could be unlocked through certain rituals or tasks related to the number 2401. Videos would be made telling you to run around in a circle 24 times or to collect 2,401 coins in the game. Chances are you probably fell for this rumor as a kid, and using a modern equivalent, it was quite similar to the Minecraft rumor telling you to use a water bucket on a glowstone portal in Minecraft. Nintendo recognized the rumor was spreading, and as an April Fool's joke from a Nintendo Power magazine, this made its way into the final product. Super Mario 64 Secrets Revealed. L is Real 2041 appears on a statue in SM64. What does it mean? Find the secret to using this code on page 128. Obviously, this was a joke since there was no page 128. But this, as you can predict, instantly cemented the rumor in the minds of children who played the game. We also see the same texture used in Super Mario 64 64DS, and Super Mario Odyssey, but despite having smoother graphics, the texture still remains unreadable. The texture that's on the plaque was also put into another popular game, The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, released in 1998. We can see the effects of this theory take effect further when, in November 14th, 1996, IGN posted an article about the case. Every day, N64.com receives dozens of the most outlandish codes and strategies claiming to have found Mario's long-lost brother, Luigi. Not one of the tips we've received works. We are putting up a bounty of $100 for the first person who can prove Luigi is in the game. Below is a set of instructions for how a person can submit their findings. Well, a writer named Gavin of Nintendo Life covers a story about Daniel Nudd, who attempted to decipher the message. The message at the end of the process apparently reads, "A secret star lie here." Eerie, considering that in Super Mario Odyssey, we actually get a star from this exact fountain. This is by far the most, shall we say, credible conclusion, but there is still a lot up for debate. Given that it's unclear as to what the plaque actually says, the fact that the same model is used in a different game as a reusable asset, and that no one can agree on its meaning, this case remains unsolved. Case 2. Giga Leak. In March of 2018, several leaks were made of stolen content from Nintendo, revealing early Pokemon designs. Possibly a hacker and possibly an insider, but no one really knew for sure. Nintendo would remain uneasy for 2 more years as a few more leaks began to periodically release over time. That's when Unfortune, the infamous Giga Leak, occurred. A leak with about 3 gigabytes of assets was laid out for all of the internet to see. That may not sound like a lot of data, but considering that Super Mario 64 doesn't even reach 10 megabytes, that's a lot of data. The leak was made on July 2020. Now, leaks, contrary to popular belief, do not have the entirety of the finished product available. Instead, they require careful implementation within the game to see how the code was intended to be utilized. The code itself couldn't have been faked, as one of the developers of Star Fox confirmed on Twitter, "WTF, I haven't seen this tool I made for Star Fox 2 for almost 30 years. I wrote it in early C++ to teach myself the language more than anything else. Where the hell have hackers got all this obscure data from?" In several articles, we can also read about how Nintendo increased security measures to prevent another leak from occurring. Now, in relation to Super Mario 64, what did the hacks actually involve? Well, to start, we see a copyright document indicating a development time of about 2 years. It's fucking real. This is the source code for SM64. A UI design indicating at some point that this was going to be a co-op game, or at least have shared minigame segments. Luigi's color palette. Done. A few testing areas were revealed. Can't tell if it's just Mario's head model but stretched or not. A few enemies, each with different mechanics. It is time. Unused textures for stars and other assets. One of the data mining discords just got nuked by Nintendo. Placeholder voice lines such as the one you're hearing now. Soon. Other unused textures. Nintendo is trying to stop the ritual. And of course, Luigi. Released 24 years and 1 month after the rumor was started, I guess you could say L really was real. Spaceworld 95. Spaceworld, for those of you who don't know, was a video game event highlighting Nintendo products similar to E3. As you can imagine, with the reveal of the Nintendo 64, Nintendo had a lot up their sleeve, including a new release of a console, in addition to a 3D Mario game. Spaceworld showed off some pretty cool games, but like most lost media, most people didn't think of preserving a lot of the footage, making those question what was actually featured in the event. Initially, these would have started off as genuine questions. How did the crowd react? What levels did they show off? What stages of development was the game up to at that point? It then slowly transformed into more interesting rumors involving a creepiness factor. Enter the warrior apparition. If you search up 1995/07/29, referring to one of the Mario 64 builds, you'll find several popular videos with blurry thumbnails containing static. Let's click on the first one we see, titled "Every Copy of Mario 64 is Personalized" by a channel simply titled Bruh. We see Wario's face begin to manifest before he says this. A spotlight is shown on Mario before he turns and runs as the hallway becomes darker. We see Wario's head, chomping his teeth and getting louder each time he gets closer to Mario. We don't see what happens at the end, but you can probably come to your own conclusions. Let's try analyzing one more video by Greenio. The opening shows off what appears to be an emulator of some kind running some old Mario 64 beta from Spaceworld. We see a closed off doorway with a sign containing illegible text. With a little bit of effort, Mario proceeds to climb up the stairs and passes 2 doors. Pushing a crate, Mario then enters a giant hallway. This hallway mostly contains a few enemies and appears to be some sort of testing room for the developers to try out. We also see a modern kitchen with a portrait of Yoshi and a toad which the player decides to talk to. But it's in this section that we see something different. For a moment or two, we see a mostly empty room, and a split second later, we see the words, "the statue." The player reading the message looks into the statue before receiving instructions to get to the pipe, destroy it. The music then takes on a much eerier tone. A small maze is seen with a few womps and boos scattered about. The player looks around, somehow manages to detect a collision area in the wall, and jumping through it goes out onto the other side. We see an object that looks like it has a resemblance to a pipe. The player, choosing to follow the instructions, destroys the glitch, causing this to happen. When we hear a body fall onto the ground. Both the videos shown were quite creepy and were very well made, but what we were trying to find was the legitimate 729.95 build. A common setup you'll find from searching this up will usually involve something similar to the warrior apparition. It usually begins with Mario going to the end of a hallway before Wario says this statement.
You want fun? Wario show you fun.
He'll then proceed to chase the player, usually with the creepy infinite stairway music playing in the background. I have 2 questions in solving this case. The first is, why the connection to Wario specifically? Why did it become so popular? The second question is, can we find previous events linking back to what the build actually was? To do this, let's see if we can find archival footage from Spaceworld conferences. From Spaceworld 2000, I actually found a tech demo titled Super Mario 1-8, which could have possibly been the sequel to Mario 64. Perhaps one might even be willing to believe the sequel was created in the form of Super Mario Sunshine. In the demo, Mario picks up a box and throws it off a circular stage. Lots of Marios are seen when the number reaches 1-8, and the crowd proceeds to laugh when the Marios push each other off the stage. The stage then ripples and morphs into some rather strange shapes, before finally turning into a pizza and being inserted into a GameCube. I guess modern shitposting was always engraved in our history. Pretty interesting in regards to old media, but let's look further. A user by the name of Purple64 uploaded a video titled Spaceworld 95 promotional footage. Given that there isn't a link in the description, you might think this video would be some kind of edited ARG, which it very well might be. However, the year it was uploaded seems to line up soon after the Nintendo Giga Leaks were made, and all images shown have been confirmed to be pieces of previously lost media from Spaceworld. We see a lot of differences in regards to the UI and voice acting. And thanks to the leaks, we have patterns of the previous Mario 64 builds, which help a lot since it's these images specifically that gave rise to the whole phenomenon. Okay, we actually have part of our mystery solved. Media from Mario 64 becomes lost, and rumors start speculating about what it involves, resulting in some creepy analog horror type videos to be made. But wait, there's more. We can specifically find what helped bring the Wario apparition into the mainstream. A user by the name of Groove Raider uploaded a video 13 years ago titled Nintendo, focused on fun, featuring Charles Martinet as Wario, E3 1996. The video shows Wario insulting the design of Mario 64 before going off to show some really cool visual effects. He also says the popular phrase,
You think this is fun? You gotta be cuckoo crazy. You want fun? Wario show you fun.
Someone managed to find this video, edited the sound effects for their own purpose, and cemented the idea of the Wario apparition into viewers. In fact, looking at the video, the environment seems to be in the exact same place as the tech demo.
Isn't that great, huh? Like that, eh? Oh, watch this. This is even better.
Wet-dry aura. These mysteries are about to get quite depressing. No, really. The wet-dry aura is a phenomenon many players agree upon is a real thing. It's said to make all players who enter the wet-dry world level feel really bummed out and depressed. This mystery may be a bit difficult to solve given its more psychological factors. So in order to have an idea of what makes this level so depressing, I'll have a counter in the corner, increasing each time something negative about the level is pointed out. Now first off is the painting itself. Unlike most other paintings in the game filled with life and an indication of the level, this one is a scuttlebug on a thin layer of water with gloomy colors and sad eyes, already making this a melancholy level before we've even entered it. To start off, a water mechanic is introduced, which, based on the height that you jump into the painting when first entering, will cause the water to rise at a specific height. Some players may accidentally go too high or too low. The level is also very slow, requiring them to either swim or perform long platforming segments to get to these crystals. Dire Dire Docks and Bored Bowser's Sub were both levels with very relaxing and soothing music that fit the atmosphere. The one used in this level makes it feel abandoned and desolate. Not creepy, but rather very mundane. Unlike the other two water levels with clams, coral, fish, eels, and other things to make it look alive, this level lacks any of that. Everything feels much more industrial with machines, bricks, and steel cubes. A city in the background can be seen underwater. Unlike the other skyboxes, which mostly focus on the natural environment, this skybox features a real-life city, Shibam in Yemen. Adding a real-life city and making it appear underwater, where the only bit of sunlight is seen in the sky, certainly adds a bit of a creepiness factor to it. Now beyond this area, we see a closed off segment which allows us to go to a different part of the map. An underwater city lies here, and we can safely say that the isolation this town faces can certainly contribute to its depressing factor. Now what specifically makes this area unsettling? For one, we have a very cramped space underwater with unnatural geometry and setting, which given the rise in liminal imagery can be unsettling for quite a few. Trees and grass also make the area feel strange and give the area a lived-in feel. The buildings are the only instance where a room cannot be entered at all. The windows are completely blocked off, making me wonder what is actually inside each of the houses, and whether there are people looking at us as we continue our adventure. Once you're in the town, you can't actually leave either, adding to its claustrophobic feeling. Two other things include the mysterious numbers you obtain by interacting with random objects, making the level feel much more weird and unnatural, almost like it's some kind of ritual. Finally, the Super Mario 64 Got Milk commercial, which appears to feature the level, shows Mario escaping out of a television in the middle of the night when everyone's gone to sleep, which some people may find really interesting or slightly terrifying. Now, how would we solve this case given its more abstract mystery? Well, consider this. All levels have some sort of negative emotion behind them in a way, and I feel like players pointing out the lack of joy in Wet Dry World has caused us to point out everything we dislike about it. Consider the creepy painting in the Lethal Lava Lane level. Consider the infinite stairway with its haunting music. Consider the Boo, which upon seeing you flies down a creepy long hall, and consider the size of Peach's castle with open structure and large basement area. This genuinely creeped me out as a kid, and now that I think about it, there are several examples of levels being tedious, confusing, and downright moody. Yet we've only focused on this stage because we are told about how moody it often makes players feel, given the counters that you've seen and the fact that some players actually disagree about Wet Dry World's aura, claiming it has a positive effect on them. I think we can call this case solved. Personalized AI. I of course had to save the biggest mystery for last. Now, I have a question for everyone in the audience who's old enough to remember playing Super Mario 64 on its original console. When you were playing the game, did it ever feel different or strange when you played another person's copy? Perhaps a few notes in the songs were altered, maybe an extra tree was shown, or a few extra enemies were placed. This theory, or perhaps this thought experiment, suggests that the game itself has an AI functionality, which takes into account a person's style of play and changes the game in order to make them more comfortable with it. Some indicate that ROM versions of the game feel less exciting from when they were a kid. The reasoning for this is that ROMs have the personalized AI removed as one of the game's features. Some changes players have pointed out as a result of the AI have fairly mild changes, like the chain chomp in Bomb-On Battlefield being able to free itself and turning into an enemy that can chase you. Another common change people point out is that in some game cartridges, you can enter the tunnel in Dire Diadox to attain a star. It's a very interesting way of looking at the game, since most players today will either have to play Mario 64 through an emulator or pay for the Nintendo Online service to run the game. Therefore, only those who experience the original game in childhood are able to understand this rumor on a more personal level. Many players of this rumor say the reason why you don't see different today is because ROMs use only one version of the game. What if you were to use a very specific version? Let me introduce you to a ROM hack called B3313. B3313 has gained quite a lot of popularity due to its gameplay and liminal visuals. The game is set so that players are likely to get completely lost after just a few turns. It has scarcely any linear progression and will sometimes utilize assets of Mario 64 to up the creepiness factor through nostalgia. I'll give you a quick preview. Starting off, we hear a very different voice line from Mario. All Mario's voice lines are used from the beta version of the game. Moving on to the selection screen, we hear a menacing tone in regards to the music. The outside of Peach's castle looks just about the same, and we also have the same limited moveset shown in the beta. The only major difference is this giant back area with the golden toad statue. Oh hey, there's Yoshi, let's talk to him. Welcome to a new adventure. There are so many worlds to visit and so little time. Let your decisions be the right path to follow. Oh, and don't enter this cave unless you want to see your deepest fears unfold. Oh cool, we can also play as Luigi. I think I'll start off with the classic Bob-omb Battlefield, which is actually a picture of a mountain landscape, we can jump into a hole which leads us to this slide level found in the original game. We then return and get our first star. Cool. Let's try that tunnel we were told not to go into. Okay, slightly unnerving feeling, but the star is just there. Shouldn't be too hard, right? Ah, this is terrifying. The music for a second made me think I was about to be chased. Let's read the sign here. Old friend? I see you're escaping. Are you feeling okay? You can always turn off this game, but both of us know that you're still trapped inside your own walls. Let's agree to never go in that tunnel again. This game sort of encapsulates that creepy familiarity some of us may have had when playing Mario 64. That inescapable feeling that the gameplay we experienced as kids is something other people couldn't possibly replicate for themselves, where everything feels slightly different. Now, don't get me wrong, some of the levels in here are genuinely quite nice to experience, with unique music to follow. They have a unique feel which, if you didn't know any better, could have actually been in the original game. Then you have some segments such as this tunnel area which, well, you'll find differing contrast between outright terrifying, weird, unusual, normal, and even deeply calming. It was this water segment that also freaked me out, where the music stops, you're unable to exit through the doors, and as you slowly run out of health, you're helpless to do anything except to try and get the star attached to the eel. At the time of viewing, I barely got any stars to even remotely complete the game, which tells us a lot about the abundance of levels available. If, by any chance, you have a basic understanding of ROM hacking, or if you know a YouTuber who's played the game, then I highly recommend you check it out. To tie this case off, let me try to explain some of the theories to the best of my abilities. The first theory I have involves the individual cartridges. Individual cartridges were used for Nintendo 64 save data. Considering that these cartridges could have been worn out or damaged may mean that perhaps certain unique glitches within the systems of the games kids were playing could have occurred. This is something speedrunners have tried to do on purpose. In the video game SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom, for example, players find out that by smudging certain areas of the game disc, they could actually get a better time by causing specific bugs to occur. This may explain why ROMs and emulators are said to all be the same copy of one singular version of the game, since unlike physical copies of a game, they can't be damaged. The second theory I have comes from the idea of the technology at the time. Most players not having computers would either have to have relied through word of mouth, magazines, which as you know could have also helped spread rumors, and even if you did have a computer and access to the internet and use online guides, they mostly utilize descriptive text as opposed to images. Considering the cartridges of the game could result in bugs if they were damaged somehow, you couldn't simply dismiss a person's reports of the game because they had no proof. This proof would have been very difficult to compile on the internet, and oftentimes you would have just have to take the player's word for it. The third theory comes from the growth of the internet. Online theories, scary videos, and an eager curiosity from all Gen Z kids such as myself growing up would have obtained a keen interest as to the mysteries of the game when players of the 90s were nearing adulthood. Consider the Giga Leak as well. If Luigi and other secret code could have been found in the game, then surely this personalized AI theory was not too far-fetched, right? The final theory I have involves the use of hardware space. Super Mario 64 is said to have only been around 10 megabytes, when the console itself was said to have been capable of running 64 megabytes. Does this mean Nintendo could have used the other 54 megabytes to insert an AI? Well, not really. The amount of code you would probably have to have used for an AI system to change assets and take into account so many factors would probably need more than 54 megabytes. Well, Well, when the console first released, developers were still figuring out different ways to help optimize the console. The N64 expansion pack was an accessory, allowing players to play more memory-heavy games such as Donkey Kong 64 and Conker's Bad Fur Day, which had not even been created yet. Do I think the personalized AI is real? No, the console wasn't even capable of running such a feature, and looking through the game's code, there isn't anything to suggest a personalized AI exists. Now, to end the video, we can see that all these mysteries somehow connect to one another in a weird sort of way. The L is real mystery shows an insight into how rumors can grow and spread. The Giga Leak tells us how there is always a possibility for a game company to have hidden secrets. Spaceworld 95 brought up how lost media can be great sources of inspiration for some very creepy projects. The wet dry aura informed us about shared experience and how players can connect through very similar emotions, and the personalized AI case is perhaps a combination of all four. My biggest hope for future generations to come includes many things. For one, perhaps a better resolution towards climate change. For another, perhaps a better understanding of knowledge to further the progression of humanity. And finally, that future kids growing up will also pick up on the same curiosities we had as children.